After my checkup, my granddaughter nervously slipped a folded note into my purse. Run from your family now. I was confused by her trembling hands, by the fear in her eyes. I didn't understand, not yet. But that night, I found out why. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what they did to me. What my own flesh and blood planned to do to me. But before I tell you everything, before I share the darkest secret that nearly destroyed my life, please, if you're listening to this, like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to tell you, it could happen to anyone. It could happen to you. I'm 71 years old. I was married for 48 beautiful years to a man who loved me more than life itself. When Harold passed 3 years ago, I thought my world had ended. But I still had my family. I still had my son Michael, my daughter-in-law Patricia, and my precious granddaughter Lily. Lily was my light in the darkness, my reason to keep going when grief threatened to swallow me whole. For 3 years, I lived in their home. Their beautiful 2-story house with the white picket fence and the garden I helped Patricia plant. Every morning, I'd wake up to the smell of coffee brewing and Lily's laughter echoing through the halls. I'd sit in my favorite chair by the kitchen window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, sipping my tea from Harold's favorite mug. Those mornings felt like grace. Like God was reminding me that even after loss, there could still be joy. Michael would kiss my forehead before leaving for work, just like he did when he was 7 years old. Patricia would ask about my arthritis, remind me to take my pills. And Lily, sweet Lily, would curl up beside me while she ate her cereal, telling me about her dreams, her friends, her plans for the future. I thought I was loved. I thought I was wanted. I thought I was home. But I was living in a house built on lies. The day it all began to unravel was supposed to be routine. Just a regular checkup with Dr. Morrison, the same doctor who'd been caring for me for over a decade. Michael drove me there, Patricia sitting in the passenger seat, Lily in the back beside me. The conversation felt normal, talk about the weather, Lily's upcoming school play, Patricia's job at the bank. But something was different. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Patricia kept glancing at Michael in the rearview mirror. Quick, nervous glances. And when we arrived at the clinic, she immediately started talking to the receptionist in hushed tones. I watched her lips move, saw her gesture toward me, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. Michael stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder, but it didn't feel protective. It felt possessive, like he was making sure I wouldn't go anywhere. And Lily, my poor Lily, looked terrified. Dr. Morrison's examination was thorough, more thorough than usual. He asked me questions about my memory, my daily routines, my emotional state. Questions that felt intrusive, personal in a way that made my skin crawl. All the while, Michael and Patricia sat in the corner, watching every word, every gesture, every response. Mrs. Henderson, Dr. Morrison said, removing his stethoscope, your physical health is excellent for a woman your age. Blood pressure is good, heart rate steady, reflexes normal. I smiled, relieved. Thank you, doctor. I do try to take care of myself. But then he paused. He looked at Michael and Patricia, then back at me. I'd like to schedule some additional tests. Cognitive assessments. Just routine for someone in your age bracket. Cognitive assessments? I'd never needed those before. My mind was sharp as a tack. I could remember every anniversary, every birthday, every important date in our family's history. I could balance my checkbook down to the penny, solve crossword puzzles that stumped people half my age, and I never, ever forgot to take my medication. But Michael nodded eagerly. Yes, doctor. We've been concerned about some episodes. Episodes? What episodes? I turned to look at my son, confusion written all over my face. What are you talking about, Michael? Patricia leaned forward. Mother Henderson, remember last week when you couldn't find your glasses? You accused me of moving them. I just misplaced them. Everyone misplaces things. And the time you forgot we had dinner plans with the Robertsons, Michael added. You seemed genuinely confused about what day it was. My heart started racing. These weren't episodes. These were normal, everyday moments of forgetfulness that happened to everyone. But the way they were presenting them, the way they looked at each other, the way Dr. Morrison was writing notes. That's when Lily moved. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner, her small hands folded in her lap, her eyes darting between her parents and me. But when Dr. Morrison stepped out of the room for a moment to grab some forms, she practically lunged toward me. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I need to give you something." Her hands were shaking. Actually shaking. This child who had never shown fear around me, who had always been my brave little warrior, was trembling like a leaf in a storm. She pressed something into my purse, her movements quick and secretive. "Please don't read this until you're alone," she whispered, glancing nervously at her parents. "Promise me, Grandma. Promise me you'll wait until you're completely alone." I nodded, too shocked to speak. What could possibly make this child so frightened? What secret was she keeping? And why did she look at her own parents like they were strangers? When Dr. Morrison returned, Lily had retreated to her corner, but I could see tears forming in her eyes. The rest of the appointment passed in a blur. Scheduled tests, paperwork, appointments for monitoring. Words that should have felt routine, but instead felt ominous, threatening. On the drive home, I kept reaching into my purse, feeling the small piece of paper Lily had hidden there. It burned against my fingers like a secret too dangerous to hold. Michael and Patricia chatted about dinner plans, weekend activities, normal family conversation. But it all sounded hollow now, like actors reading lines in a play I didn't understand. When we arrived home, Patricia immediately busied herself in the kitchen. "I thought I'd make your favorite tonight, Mother Henderson. Pot roast with those little potatoes you love." Michael disappeared into his study. "I have some work to catch up on," he called out. "Don't wait dinner for me." And Lily. Lily ran straight to her room and closed the door. The house felt different. Charged with electricity, thick with unspoken tension. I sat in my chair by the kitchen window, watching Patricia move around the kitchen with mechanical precision. She kept glancing at me, quick sideways looks when she thought I wasn't paying attention. "Patricia," I said finally, "is everything all right? You seem tense." She turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everything's fine, Mother Henderson. Just tired from a long day." But everything wasn't fine. I could feel it in the air, see it in the way she avoided my direct gaze, hear it in the forced cheerfulness of her voice. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Hours crawled by like years. Dinner was eaten in relative silence. Michael emerged from his study long enough to push food around his plate and make small talk about work. Patricia asked about my appetite, my energy level, how I was feeling. Questions that should have felt caring but instead felt like an interrogation. And through it all, Lily sat silent as a ghost, picking at her food, stealing glances at me when her parents weren't looking. Every time our eyes met, I saw the same thing: fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. What kind of family had I been living with? What kind of people were these that I'd called my own? Finally, mercifully, the day ended. Patricia helped me to my room, fluffed my pillows, made sure my water glass was full. "Sleep well, Mother Henderson," she said, kissing my forehead. But even that simple gesture felt wrong, felt calculated. I waited. Oh God, how I waited. I lay in that bed, listening to the sounds of the house settling around me. Footsteps in the hallway, muffled voices, the distant sound of the television. I waited until everything went quiet, until I was sure everyone was asleep. Then, with trembling hands, I reached for my purse and pulled out Lily's note. I'll never forget those words. They're burned into my memory like a brand, like a scar that will never heal. "Grandma, don't go home tomorrow. They're planning something terrible. Please trust me. Please run. I heard them talking, and they want to hurt you. I love you so much. Please be safe. My own son. My own daughter-in-law. planning something terrible. But what? What could they possibly want from me? What could they gain by hurting an old woman who'd given them nothing but love and support? I sat in that bed, note clutched in my arthritic hands, and felt my world crumble around me. The house I'd called home for 3 years suddenly felt like a prison. The family I'd trusted with my life suddenly felt like strangers. Enemy strangers. But Lily's warning had awakened something in me. Something fierce and protective and absolutely furious. If they thought they could manipulate an old woman, if they thought they could take advantage of my grief and loneliness, they were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. I crept out of bed, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. I had to know what they were planning. I had to understand what my precious granddaughter had risked everything to warn me about. Their bedroom was at the end of the hall, and the walls in this old house were thin. I pressed my ear against the door and listened. At first, there was nothing but silence. Then, like a nightmare coming to life, I heard voices. Whispered, urgent voices that cut through my heart like knives. The doctor said the tests are just a formality, Patricia was saying. Once we have the cognitive assessment showing decline, it'll be easy to get medical certification. Medical certification? Certification for what? I still don't like this, Michael's voice. My son's voice. She's my mother, Patricia. This feels wrong. Wrong? Patricia's voice was sharp, impatient. What's wrong is us drowning in debt while she sits on a fortune. What's wrong is working ourselves to death while she lives rent-free in our house. What's wrong is pretending we can afford this lifestyle when we can't. My blood turned to ice. Fortune? What fortune? I lived on Harold's pension and Social Security. I had some savings, yes, and Harold had left me the house we'd lived in for 30 years. But a fortune? The house alone is worth $300,000, Patricia continued. Plus her bank accounts, her investments, her life insurance. Do you realize what we could do with that money? We could pay off the credit cards, the mortgage, Michael's student loans. We could actually breathe again. But she's not dead, Patricia. She's not even sick. Not yet. But once we get the mental health certification, we can get power of attorney. We can move her to a care facility, sell the house, take control of her finances. It's not like we're killing her. We're just managing her affairs. Managing my affairs. Like I was already gone. Like I was already dead to them. What about Lily? Michael asked. She's been asking questions about why Grandma needs so many doctor visits. Lily is 8 years old, Patricia snapped. She'll adjust. Children are resilient. No, my Lily was more than resilient. She was brave. She was loyal. She was everything her parents weren't. The medication switch was brilliant, Patricia continued, mixing her arthritis pills with those mild sedatives. No wonder she's been more forgetful lately, more confused. The doctor won't question the cognitive decline when we have documentation of behavioral changes. They'd been drugging me to make me appear confused, forgetful, incompetent. Every morning when Patricia handed me my pills with my orange juice, she wasn't caring for me. She was poisoning me. I backed away from that door like it was on fire. My legs nearly gave out from under me, but pure rage kept me upright. These people, these monsters wearing the faces of my family, had been systematically destroying my mind, my independence, my life. And they'd been doing it with smiles on their faces, with kisses on my forehead, with words of love and concern. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated my granddaughter. They'd underestimated the bond between us, the love that ran deeper than their greed, stronger than their manipulation. I spent the rest of that night planning. Not sleeping, not crying, not wallowing in self-pity. Planning. I gathered my important documents from the small safe Harold had installed in our bedroom closet. Birth certificate, Social Security card, bank statements, the deed to our house, Harold's life insurance papers, my will. Everything they thought they could steal from me. I packed a small suitcase with essential clothes, medications, and the few pieces of jewelry Harold had given me over the years. I counted the cash I kept hidden in an old recipe box, nearly $2,000 that Patricia didn't know existed. And I wrote letters. One to my lawyer, explaining everything I discovered. One to Dr. Morrison, demanding copies of all my medical records and informing him that I was seeking a second opinion. One to the bank, instructing them to freeze any attempts to access my accounts without my direct, in-person authorization. But the most important letter was to Lily, my brave, beautiful granddaughter who had risked everything to save me. My dearest Lily, I wrote, you are the bravest person I know. You saved my life tonight, and I will never forget that. I'm going away for a while, but I want you to know that everything I do from now on is to protect both of us. Stay strong, stay brave, and remember that your grandmother loves you more than all the stars in the sky. At 5 a.m, while the house still slept, I slipped out the back door like a thief in the night. Except I wasn't stealing anything. I was taking back what was already mine. My freedom, my dignity, my life. The bus station was a 20-minute walk, and every step felt like a declaration of independence. The early morning air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in months, I could think clearly. No sedatives clouding my judgment, no manipulation poisoning my thoughts. Just me, my mind sharp as ever, and a plan for justice. I bought a ticket to the city, to the downtown area where my lawyer's office was located. As the bus pulled away from the curb, I watched my son's neighborhood disappear behind me. 3 years of my life gone. But better gone than stolen. The hotel room was small but clean, with a view of the city's skyline that reminded me I was still alive, still capable, still fighting. I called my lawyer first, James Patterson, who'd handled Harold's estate and had known our family for 20 years. Margaret. His voice was surprised. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Is everything all right? No, James. Everything is very much not all right. I need to see you immediately. And I need you to record everything I'm about to tell you. Within 2 hours, I was sitting in his office, laying out the entire nightmare. The fake memory episodes, the drugging, the overheard conversation about medical certification and power of attorney. James listened with growing horror, taking notes, asking sharp questions that proved he understood the gravity of the situation. Margaret, what you're describing is elder abuse. Financial exploitation. This is serious criminal behavior. I know exactly what it is, I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. The question is, what can we do about it? James didn't waste time with sympathy or platitudes. He was a fighter, just like Harold had been, just like I was learning to be again. Within hours, he'd contacted Dr. Morrison and demanded an immediate meeting. He'd arranged for me to see an independent physician for a complete cognitive assessment. He'd put alerts on all my financial accounts and started the process of documenting everything for potential criminal charges. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Morrison agreed to meet with us that afternoon. Mrs. Henderson, Dr. Morrison said, looking deeply uncomfortable, I need to tell you something. Your granddaughter came to see me yesterday. Alone. My heart stopped. Lily came to see you? How? She rode her bicycle to my office after school. She was crying, terrified. She told me her parents were planning to hurt you, that they'd been putting something in your medication. She begged me to warn you, but she made me promise not to tell her parents she'd spoken to me. My beautiful, brave Lily. 8 years old and risking everything to save her grandmother. While her parents plotted my destruction, she was fighting for my life. I didn't know what to believe at first, Dr. Morrison continued. But she was so specific, so detailed about what she'd overheard. And when I reviewed your recent test results, some things didn't add up. Your cognitive function showed decline, but your physical health was perfect. In my experience, that's unusual unless there's medication interference. James leaned forward. Medication interference? Sedatives can mimic early dementia symptoms. confusion, memory problems, disorientation. If someone was regularly giving Mrs. Henderson sedatives without her knowledge, it would explain the cognitive decline I documented. The room fell silent. Here was a medical professional confirming what I'd suspected, what Lily had risked everything to expose. My family hadn't just been planning to steal from me, they'd been systematically destroying my mental capacity to make it possible. "I want blood tests," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like steel. "I want to know exactly what they've been putting in my system." The blood tests confirmed everything. Traces of benzodiazepines, sedatives that weren't prescribed to me, weren't necessary for my health, and certainly weren't medication I'd consented to take. For months, Patricia had been drugging my orange juice, my tea, probably my food. Slowly, carefully poisoning my mind to make me appear incompetent. But the most damning evidence came from James's investigation into their finances. Michael and Patricia weren't just in debt, they were drowning. Credit cards maxed out, mortgage payments behind, collection agencies calling daily. They'd been living beyond their means for years, and my presence in their house wasn't charity. It was an investment in their scheme to steal everything Harold and I had worked for. James discovered forged documents. Patricia, with her access to banking systems through her job, had been slowly preparing to transfer my assets. Fake power of attorney papers, forged medical assessments, even preliminary paperwork for selling my house. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. But they'd made a critical error. They'd underestimated an 8-year-old girl's love for her grandmother. "I want to see her," I told James. "I want to see Lily." "Margaret, that might not be safe. If they realize what's happening, they already know something's wrong. I've been gone for 3 days. They know I'm not coming back on my own." James arranged for a meeting at his office. Neutral ground, with security present and social services on standby. When Patricia and Michael arrived with Lily, their faces were masks of concern and confusion. "Mother," Michael said, rushing toward me. "We've been so worried." "Where have you been?" "We thought something terrible had happened." I stood up slowly, looking at this man who'd grown from the little boy I'd rocked to sleep, who'd scraped his knee and come running to Mama for comfort. Now he was a stranger wearing my son's face, speaking lies with my son's voice. "Something terrible did happen, Michael. But not to me. To you." The confrontation was swift and brutal. James had arranged for recording equipment, and when he played back the conversation I'd overheard through their bedroom door, their faces went white as sheets. Patricia tried to deny it, to claim I was confused, mentally unstable. But the blood tests, the forged documents, the financial records, everything painted a picture so clear that even they couldn't lie their way out of it. And through it all, Lily sat in the corner, watching her parents' world crumble around them. When Patricia tried to use her as a character witness, tried to claim that I'd been showing signs of dementia that worried the whole family, Lily stood up. "That's not true," she said, her small voice cutting through her mother's lies like a sword. "Grandma was never confused until you started putting those pills in her juice. I saw you do it, Mama. I saw you crush them up and stir them in when you thought no one was looking." The silence that followed was deafening. 8 years old, and she'd just destroyed her parents' entire scheme with the truth. Patricia turned on her own daughter like a wounded animal. "Lily, you don't understand what you're saying. Grandma is sick, and we were trying to help. You were trying to steal from her." Lily shouted, tears streaming down her face. "I heard you talking about money and houses and getting rid of her. You wanted to put her in one of those sad places and take everything that was hers. That's not helping. That's stealing." Michael tried to approach his daughter, but she backed away from him like he was a stranger. In that moment, I realized that's exactly what he'd become to her. Her father had turned into someone she didn't recognize, someone she couldn't trust. The legal proceedings moved quickly after that. James had built an airtight case, and with Lily's testimony, there was no room for doubt. Elder abuse, financial exploitation, fraud, forgery, The charges piled up like stones. Patricia lost her job at the bank when the investigation revealed she'd used her position to facilitate the identity theft. Michael faced charges for conspiracy and fraud. But the courtroom scenes were the hardest part. Watching my son, the baby I'd nursed and raised and loved unconditionally, sitting at the defendant's table in handcuffs. Listening to Patricia's lawyer try to paint me as a vindictive old woman seeking revenge against a loving family. The worst moment came when Michael took the stand. His lawyer had advised him to show remorse, to appeal to the court's sympathy. And for a moment, when he looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry," I almost believed him, almost forgave him. But then he continued. We were scared. Mom was getting older, more forgetful. We thought we were protecting her from herself, making sure she'd be taken care of when she couldn't make decisions anymore. Protecting me? By drugging me? By forging documents and stealing my identity? By planning to lock me away in a care facility while they sold everything Harold and I had built together? You weren't protecting me, I said when the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. You were burying me alive. You were erasing me while I was still breathing, still thinking, still capable of living my own life. You turned my own home into a prison and my own family into jailers. But the worst part isn't what you did to me. It's what you taught your daughter. You taught her that family means nothing when money is involved. You taught her that love is conditional, that loyalty can be bought and sold. You taught her that the people who are supposed to protect her are the ones she should fear most. I looked at Lily, sitting in the gallery with a social worker beside her. She'd been so brave through everything, but I could see the toll it had taken. The confusion, the guilt, the terrible burden of choosing between her grandmother and her parents. But Lily taught me something too. She taught me that real love doesn't count the cost. Real love doesn't weigh the consequences. Real love acts, even when it's terrifying, even when it hurts, even when it means standing alone against the whole world. The judge's sentence was harsh but fair. Prison time for both Michael and Patricia, restitution for the financial damages, and a restraining order preventing them from contacting me without court supervision. But the real justice came in the form of custody arrangements for Lily. I'd petitioned for guardianship, and despite my age, despite the trauma we'd all endured, the court agreed. Lily would come home with me, to my real home, the house Harold and I had shared, the place where love meant protection, not exploitation. The day we moved back into my house, Lily stood in the doorway like she was seeing it for the first time. It feels different than Mom and Dad's house, she said. How so, sweetheart? It feels safe. Like nobody here wants to hurt anybody else. That's when I knew we'd both be all right. This child who'd saved my life, who'd shown courage beyond her years, who'd chosen truth over comfort, she understood what family really meant. Not blood ties or shared genes, but shared values. Shared love. Shared commitment to protecting each other. It's been 6 months since that nightmare ended. 6 months since Lily and I started our new life together. She's thriving in her new school, making friends, laughing again. The fear has faded from her eyes, replaced by the sparkle that belongs there. I've started speaking publicly about elder abuse, sharing our story at community centers and senior facilities. You'd be amazed how many people approach me afterward with their own stories of family betrayal, financial exploitation, systematic theft disguised as care. But Mrs. Henderson, they ask, how do you trust again? How do you open your heart to family when family is what hurt you? And I tell them what Lily taught me. Family isn't about genetics. Family is about choice. Every day, we choose to love each other, to protect each other, to put each other's welfare above our own desires. Michael and Patricia stopped being my family the moment they chose greed over love. But Lily became my family the moment she chose courage over comfort. The hardest question I get is about forgiveness. Don't you hate them? People ask. Don't you want revenge? The truth is, some days I do hate them. Some days I wake up angry at the years I lost, the trust that was shattered, the innocence that was stolen from a child who should have been protected. But hatred is a poison that hurts the person carrying it more than the person it's aimed at. I choose to focus on what I gained instead of what I lost. I gained a granddaughter who is more than family. She's my hero. I gained knowledge about my own strength, my own resilience, my own capacity to fight back when everything seems hopeless. I gained a voice to speak for others who might be suffering in silence. And I gained something else, something unexpected. I gained perspective on what really matters. Not money, not property, not inheritance or a legacy. What matters is the people who would risk everything to save you, who would stand with you when the whole world seems against you, who would choose truth even when lies would be easier. Lily and I have created our own traditions now. Every morning, we have tea together and plan our day. Every evening, we read stories and talk about what we learned. And every night before bed, we remind each other, we are safe here. We are loved here. We are family here. Sometimes she asks about her parents. She misses them, despite everything they did. That's natural, and I encourage her to feel those emotions rather than suppressing them. But I also make sure she understands that missing someone doesn't mean accepting their behavior. Love doesn't require us to enable others' cruelty. The investigation into their scheme revealed it was even worse than I'd initially discovered. They'd been planning to have me declared incompetent within 6 months. Patricia had already researched care facilities, specifically looking for places that discouraged family visits, that isolated residents from outside contact. They weren't just planning to steal my money, they were planning to make me disappear. If Lily hadn't acted when she did, if she hadn't found the courage to slip that note into my purse, I would have lost everything. My freedom, my independence, my dignity, my life savings, my house, my connection to the outside world. I would have died alone in a sterile facility, convinced that my family had abandoned me, never knowing they'd orchestrated my abandonment. That 8-year-old child saved more than my life. She saved my soul. People ask me what I want them to take away from our story. What lessons should they learn? What warnings should they heed? First, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, if people you love are acting strangely, if your own mind seems to be betraying you, ask questions. Demand answers. Get second opinions. Don't let anyone, even family, convince you that your perceptions are invalid. Second, document everything. Keep your own records, maintain your own accounts, know your own assets. Don't surrender your independence in the name of convenience or care. Independence isn't about age. It's about the right to make your own decisions as long as you're capable of making them. Third, listen to the children. They see things adults miss because they haven't yet learned to explain away red flags or rationalize harmful behavior. If a child in your life seems scared or anxious around family members, pay attention. If they're trying to tell you something but seem afraid to speak openly, create safe spaces for them to share their truth. Fourth, know that abuse doesn't always look like violence. Financial exploitation, medical manipulation, emotional coercion, these are forms of abuse that leave invisible scars. Just because someone isn't hitting you doesn't mean they aren't hurting you. And finally, remember that healing is possible. Recovery is possible. Justice is possible. It's never too late to fight back, to reclaim your life, to choose who deserves your trust and love. Lily and I go to counseling together twice a month. We're both dealing with trauma, both learning to navigate a world where the people who were supposed to protect us became the people we needed protection from. But we're doing it together, and that makes all the difference. Last week, Lily asked me if I regret having Michael, if I wish I'd never become a mother. The question broke my heart because I could hear the guilt behind it. She was wondering if loving her parents had been a mistake, if trusting family was foolish. Sweetheart, I told her, I don't regret loving your father. I regret that he chose not to love me back when it mattered most. Love is never the mistake. The mistake is when we choose something else over love. She thought about that for a while, then nodded. So you're saying love isn't the problem? People's choices are the problem. Exactly. Love isn't the problem. It never is. Sometimes people ask me if I've heard from Michael and Patricia since their sentencing. The truth is, Michael has tried to contact me several times from prison. Letters, mostly, filled with apologies and explanations and requests for forgiveness. Patricia has remained silent, perhaps understanding that some betrayals cut too deep for words to heal. I haven't responded to Michael's letters. Not because I'm cruel or vindictive, but because I'm finally protecting myself the way I should have all along. Some people deserve second chances. Some people deserve the benefit of the doubt. But some people forfeit their right to those things when they cross lines that should never be crossed. Drugging your own mother to steal her life savings is one of those lines. Planning to lock her away in a facility while you sell everything she worked for is another. Using a child as an unwitting accomplice in elder abuse crosses every line that exists. But here's what I've learned in these 6 months of healing. Justice isn't just about punishment. Justice is also about protection. Protecting yourself from further harm. Protecting others who might be vulnerable. Protecting the truth when people would rather bury it in lies and excuses. My story has gone viral, as they say these days. Millions of people have heard about what happened to me, about how Lily saved my life, about how we found our way to justice and healing. The comments and messages I receive are overwhelming. Stories from other seniors who've faced similar betrayals, stories from caregivers who've witnessed abuse, stories from children who've had to choose between protecting a loved one and staying loyal to their parents. But the messages that mean the most come from other grandparents and their grandchildren. "You've given us permission to trust each other," one grandmother wrote. "My granddaughter has been trying to tell me something about her parents for months, but I kept dismissing it as childhood imagination. After hearing your story, I finally listened. Really listened. And she saved me too." That's when I know this pain, this betrayal, this nightmare, it all served a purpose. If my suffering can prevent even one other family from going through what we went through, then it wasn't meaningless. The holidays were hard this year. The first Thanksgiving, the first Christmas without Michael and Patricia. But Lily and I created new traditions. We volunteered at a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, serving meals to people who had nowhere else to go. We spent Christmas morning visiting elderly residents at a nursing home, bringing gifts and singing carols and sharing stories. "Grandma," Lily said on Christmas night as we sat by our tree, "I'm glad we spent today with people who don't have families." Why is that, sweetheart? Because now they know they're not alone. And we know we're not alone either. We have each other, and we have all the people we helped today. That's a lot of family, isn't it? Yes, my brave girl. That's a lot of family indeed. I often think about that note Lily slipped into my purse that day at the doctor's office. Such a small piece of paper, such simple words, but they changed everything. They saved everything. I keep that note framed on my bedside table now, a reminder of the moment my granddaughter chose courage over comfort, truth over safety, love over fear. "Grandma, don't go home tomorrow. They're planning something terrible. Please trust me. Please run. I heard them talking, and they want to hurt you. I love you so much. Please be safe." Those words were my salvation. But they were also my granddaughter's declaration of war against the adults who were supposed to protect her, who were supposed to protect me. An 8-year-old child shouldn't have to declare war against her own parents. But sometimes, when the adults fail, the children have to step up and be the grown-ups. Lily was more mature, more moral, more courageous than any adult in that house. She saw what was happening, understood the consequences, and acted to prevent it, even though it meant betraying her parents, even though it meant upending her entire world. That's not something a child should have to do. But I'm grateful beyond words that she did it anyway. People sometimes ask me what I want to happen to Michael and Patricia. Do I want them to suffer? Do I want them to rot in prison? Do I want them to lose everything the way they tried to make me lose everything? The honest answer is complicated. Part of me, The part that still hurts from their betrayal does want them to suffer, does want them to understand what it feels like to have everything taken away, to be powerless, to be at the mercy of others who don't have mercy. But another part of me, the part that Lily has helped me nurture, just wants them to understand what they did. To truly comprehend the magnitude of their betrayal, the depth of the pain they caused, the ripple effects of their choices. I want them to understand that they didn't just steal money or property. They stole trust. They stole security. They stole a child's faith in her parents. Most of all, I want them to understand that their actions forced their own daughter to choose between saving her grandmother and protecting her parents. And she chose me. An 8-year-old child looked at the adults in her life and decided that her grandmother was the one worth saving. What does that say about them as parents? What does that say about them as people? Prison sentences end. But the knowledge that your own child saw you as the villain in her grandmother's story? That lasts forever. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up that night. If I hadn't heard their conversation through the bedroom door. If I had just trusted Lily's note and run without understanding why. Would I have always wondered? Would I have spent the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, never understanding the full scope of their betrayal? Would I have been able to fight back effectively without knowing exactly what I was fighting against? I think Lily's note would have been enough to save my immediate safety. But overhearing their conversation gave me the ammunition I needed to fight back, to protect not just myself but Lily too. It gave me the evidence I needed to ensure they couldn't just try again with some other vulnerable person. Knowledge is power, and that night, listening to my son and daughter-in-law plan my destruction, I gained the power to stop them permanently. The hardest part of this entire experience hasn't been the betrayal itself, as devastating as that was. The hardest part has been watching Lily grapple with the aftermath. This child who saved my life is now dealing with the consequences of that salvation. Parents in prison, a completely upended life. The knowledge that the people who were supposed to love her most were capable of such cruelty. She's in therapy, and she's doing well, but there are still nights when she wakes up crying. Still moments when she asks if it's her fault that her parents are gone. Still times when she wonders if she made the wrong choice. Lily, I tell her during those dark moments, you didn't put your parents in prison. Their choices put them in prison. You just made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. But what if I was wrong, she whispers. What if they really were trying to help you? Sweetheart, people who are trying to help don't lie. They don't hide their actions. They don't drug people without their knowledge. They don't forge documents. They don't plan to take everything someone owns. People who are trying to help ask questions. They involve the person they're helping in the decisions. They act in the open, not in secret. She nods, but I can see the guilt still eating at her. It's not fair. This child saved us both, and she's the one carrying the heaviest burden. But I also see her strength growing every day. I see her learning to trust her own instincts, her own moral compass. I see her understanding that sometimes doing the right thing is hard, but that doesn't make it wrong. The legal proceedings officially ended last month. Michael was sentenced to 8 years for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Patricia received 10 years for the same charges plus additional counts related to her abuse of her position at the bank. They'll be eligible for parole in 5 and 7 years, respectively, but they'll have to demonstrate genuine remorse and understanding of their crimes. I don't know if that will ever happen. Remorse requires the ability to see past your own wants and needs, to understand how your actions affect others. I'm not sure either of them possesses that capacity. But what I do know is that Lily and I are safe now. We're building a life based on honesty, trust, and genuine love. We're creating a family that protects rather than exploits, that builds up rather than tears down. Every morning when I wake up in my own house, in the bed I shared with Harold for nearly 5 decades, I'm grateful. Grateful to be free, grateful to be safe, grateful to have Lily beside me. But I'm also grateful for something else. I'm grateful that I found the strength to fight back. For too long, I let other people make decisions about my life. I let them tell me what I needed, what was best for me, how I should feel and think and act. I gave away my power in the name of being agreeable, being grateful, being easy to care for. Never again. Lily has taught me that age doesn't diminish our right to autonomy. That needing some help doesn't mean surrendering all control. That family love should feel safe, not threatening. These are lessons I wish I'd learned sooner. But I'm grateful I learned them at all. The final court date was emotionally exhausting. Watching Michael and Patricia receive their sentences, seeing them in handcuffs, listening to the judge detail their crimes, it was surreal. These people I'd lived with, laughed with, trusted with my life, were being led away as convicted criminals. But what struck me most was their lack of understanding. Even in their final statements to the court, they talked about their financial stress, their good intentions, their belief that they were acting in my best interests. They still didn't get it. They still didn't understand that good intentions don't justify criminal actions, that financial stress doesn't excuse elder abuse, that love doesn't include drugging and deceiving. Patricia actually said, "We never meant to hurt her. We just wanted to make sure she was taken care of." The judge's response was perfect. "Mrs. Peterson, taking care of someone means respecting their autonomy, their dignity, and their right to make decisions about their own life. What you did was the opposite of care. What you did was systematic abuse disguised as concern." That's exactly right. Abuse disguised as concern. How many families are dealing with this right now? How many elderly people are being told that their autonomy is being taken away for their own good? How many children are watching their grandparents disappear into systems designed to benefit everyone except the elderly person themselves? The prosecutor told me after the sentencing that our case has already influenced other investigations. Apparently, Patricia's methods at the bank weren't unique to my situation. They're looking into other cases where she may have helped families gain access to elderly relatives' accounts under suspicious circumstances. It's horrifying to think about, but also encouraging. If our fight for justice can help protect other vulnerable people, then all this pain serves a purpose. I've been asked to speak at conferences about elder abuse, to share our story with social workers and healthcare professionals and law enforcement. It's hard, reliving the nightmare over and over again, but it's also empowering. Every time I tell our story, I see recognition in someone's eyes. Understanding. The realization that they need to look more carefully at situations they might have dismissed before. Lily sometimes comes with me to these speaking engagements. She doesn't speak publicly, she's still just a child, and she's been through enough, but she sits in the audience, and afterward, people approach her with wonder and respect. "You're so brave," they tell her. "You saved your grandmother's life." And she always responds the same way. "She would have done the same thing for me." That's probably true. I hope it's true. I hope that if our situations had been reversed, if Lily had been the one in danger, I would have found the courage to act the way she did. But the truth is, I don't know if I could have been that brave at 8 years old. I don't know if I could have betrayed my parents to save someone else, even someone I loved deeply. The moral clarity required to see past family loyalty to basic human decency, that's extraordinary. Lily is extraordinary. We've started a small foundation to help other families dealing with elder abuse. Nothing huge, just enough to provide legal assistance and counseling services to people who can't afford them otherwise. We funded it with some of the restitution money from Michael and Patricia's sentences, plus donations from people who've heard our story. It feels good to turn our pain into purpose, our suffering into service. The foundation is called Lily's Light, after the granddaughter who illuminated the darkness that had consumed our family. We've already helped 12 families in our first 6 months of operation. 12 other stories of betrayal and exploitation that might have ended differently if we hadn't been able to provide resources and support. One case particularly touched my heart. An elderly man whose son had been slowly poisoning him with his own diabetes medication, giving him too much insulin to make him appear confused and incompetent. His grandson, only 10 years old, noticed the pattern and reached out to us through our website. We connected them with legal help, medical evaluation, and counseling services. The father is now in prison, the grandfather is healthy and safe, and the boy is living with relatives who actually care about his welfare. Another Lily. Another brave child choosing truth over comfort, choosing protection over passivity. This is happening everywhere. Children forced to become adults because the adults in their lives have abandoned their responsibilities. It breaks my heart, but it also fills me with hope. If children can be this brave, this moral, this clear-sighted about right and wrong, then maybe there's hope for all of us. Maybe the next generation will do better. Maybe they'll understand that family isn't about control or exploitation. Maybe they'll know that love means protection, not possession. I think about Harold often these days. He's been gone 3 years now, but I feel closer to him than I have since his death. Maybe it's because I'm finally living with the kind of courage he always showed. Maybe it's because I'm finally standing up for myself the way he always stood up for me. I think he would be proud of how I handled this situation. Proud that I fought back. Proud that I protected Lily. Proud that I didn't let them win. And I think he would absolutely adore the woman Lily is becoming. Brave, principled, compassionate, strong. Everything we hope for in our children and grandchildren. Sometimes I catch Lily looking at photos of Michael and Patricia, and I can see the confusion and sadness in her eyes. She's lost her parents, not to death, but to their own choices. In some ways, that might be harder than death. Death is final, clean, understandable. This is messy, ongoing, complicated. Do you think they ever really loved me? She asked me last week. It's the question I've been dreading, the one I wasn't sure how to answer. I think they loved you in the only way they knew how, I told her finally. But their love was selfish. It was about what you could give them, not about what they could give you. Real love is different. Real love puts the other person's needs first. Like the way you love me? Like the way we love each other. She smiled then, and I could see some of the sadness lifting from her shoulders. Not all of it. That will take time, maybe years, but enough to let her breathe a little easier. We're both learning what real family feels like. What it means to live without fear, without the constant tension of wondering what someone really wants from you, what they're planning behind your back. Our house is peaceful now. Quiet, but in a good way. The kind of quiet that comes from safety, not from secrets. We have routines that bring us comfort. Morning tea and planning our day. Evening stories and reflection on what we learned. Weekend adventures exploring our city, trying new restaurants, visiting museums and parks and libraries. Normal things. Healthy things. The kind of simple daily life that Patricia and Michael's schemes would have stolen from both of us. I've started gardening again, something I hadn't done since Harold died. Lily helps me plant flowers and vegetables, and we talk about how growing things requires patience, consistency, care. She's learning that good things take time, that you can't force growth, that tending something properly yields better results than trying to control everything. There are metaphors in gardening for everything we've been through. Seeds that look dead but hold life within them. Weeds that masquerade as flowers until they show their true nature. The importance of good soil, proper nutrients, adequate sunlight. Lily planted a tomato garden last spring, and when the first tomatoes ripened in July, she was so proud she cried. "I grew these, Grandma. I made something good." "Yes, sweetheart. You certainly did. And not just tomatoes." Our legal team tells us that Michael has been trying to appeal his sentence, claiming his constitutional rights were violated during the investigation. It's a desperate move that's unlikely to succeed, but it shows he still doesn't understand what he did wrong. He's still focused on getting out of consequences rather than taking responsibility for his actions. Patricia, on the other hand, has been quieter. Her lawyer reached out a few months ago to see if I'd be willing to participate in a restorative justice program, where she could apologize directly and try to make amends beyond the financial restitution. I declined. Not because I'm vindictive, but because I'm finally protecting my own peace. Some apologies aren't worth hearing, especially when they come from people who've shown they can't be trusted with your well-being. Maybe someday I'll feel differently. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear what Patricia has to say. But not today. Today, my job is to heal, to help Lily heal, and to build the kind of life we both deserve. A life built on honesty instead of manipulation. Trust instead of exploitation. Love instead of greed. The anniversary of that terrible day at the doctor's office passed last month. October 15th. The day Lily slipped that note into my purse and changed everything. We marked it quietly, just the two of us. We made a special dinner, lit a candle, and talked about how far we've come. How much stronger we are. How much safer we feel. "I'm glad I gave you that note," Lily said as we were cleaning up the dishes. "I'm glad you were brave enough to write it. I was scared, though. Really, really scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. Being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared." She thought about that while we finished the dishes. Then she said, "I think I'm still brave then. Because I'm still scared sometimes, but I still try to do the right thing." Yes, my darling girl. You're still brave. You'll always be brave. As I sit here now, telling you our story, I'm struck by how different my life is from what I thought it would be a year ago. A year ago, I thought I was living with a loving family in a safe home, planning to spend my remaining years being a grateful grandmother and mother-in-law. Now I know I was living in a carefully constructed lie, surrounded by people who saw me as a problem to be solved, an asset to be managed, an obstacle to their financial freedom. But I also know something else now. I know my own strength. I know my own worth. I know that I deserve better. A woman who's lived 71 years, who's experienced great love and great loss, who's learned hard lessons and survived devastating betrayals. A woman who's still here, still fighting, still growing, still worth saving. If you're listening to this and you recognize something familiar in our story, please don't wait. Don't hope things will get better on their own. Don't trust that family members have your best interests at heart just because they're family. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Get second opinions. Protect your independence. And listen to the children in your life. They often see things adults miss or ignore. Most importantly, remember that you matter. Your autonomy matters. Your dignity matters. Your right to live your own life on your own terms matters, regardless of your age, your health status, or your financial situation. You are worth fighting for. You are worth saving. And if you have a Lily in your life, a child who's trying to protect you, who's showing concern about the adults around you, who seems frightened of people they should trust, please listen to them. Please take them seriously. Children don't lie about fear. They don't imagine abuse. They don't misunderstand exploitation. They see clearly because they haven't yet learned to rationalize evil, to explain away red flags, to make excuses for people who don't deserve them. Lily saved my life because she trusted what she saw and heard rather than dismissing it as impossible. She acted on her knowledge rather than hoping someone else would handle it. She chose courage over comfort, truth over peace. She was 8 years old. If an 8-year-old can be that brave, that clear-sighted, that morally courageous, then surely the rest of us can find the strength to protect ourselves and each other. Surely we can choose love over greed, truth over lies, protection over exploitation. Surely we can do better. I lost a son that day when I discovered what Michael had become. But I gained something more precious, the truth. And the truth, as painful as it was, set me free. Free to live safely. Free to trust carefully. Free to love deeply. Free to build a real family with the one person who proved she deserved that trust. That night, my granddaughter didn't just save my life. She saved my soul. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about the elderly people in your own life, if it reminded you that love should always protect rather than exploit, then please like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. And if you still believe that love can survive betrayal, that families can be built on choice rather than genetics, that courage can bloom in the smallest hearts, type "love wins" in the comments. Because it does. Love wins. Not always easily. Not always quickly. Not always without pain or cost or sacrifice. But love wins. Real love always wins.